Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the Master with the Brahmo devotees, November 1882. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when Sri Ramakrishna arrived in Calcutta to attend the annual festival of the Brahma Samaj, which was to be celebrated at Manilal Mallik's house. Besides M and other devotees of the Master, Vijay Goswami and a number of Brahmos were present. Elaborate arrangements had been made to make the occasion a success. Vijay was to conduct the worship. The Kathak recited the life of Prahlada from the Purana. Its substance was as follows. Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada's father, was king of the demons. He bore great malice towards God and put his own son through endless tortures for leading a religious life. Afflicted by his father, Prahlada prayed to God, "O God, please give my father holy inclinations." At these words, the Master wept. He went into an ecstatic mood. Afterwards, he began to talk to the devotees. "Master, bhakti is the only essential thing. One obtains love of God by constantly chanting His name and singing His glories." So, the Master is here stressing the need for bhakti. What he's saying? Bhakti is the only essential thing. This is very important. We say that there are so many paths. The path of the Jnana Yogis, the path of the Raja Yogis, and of course, bhakti itself is a separate path. Then why Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that bhakti is the only essential thing? So we will find that whatever path we may follow, the bhakti has to develop in some way or other. Just let us take the one who is a Jnana Margi, one who has taken the path of knowledge as the be-all and end-all of his spiritual journey. He is not at all interested about bhakti or any other path. But for them also, we will find bhakti is essential. As we will find, even Shankaracharya in Viveka Chudamani has defined bhakti. What he has defined bhakti as? That the love for, the passion for the constant contemplation on the concept, on the idea that I am Brahman, I am the Atman, I am the conscious principle. And he is saying that is bhakti. As we have told previously again and again, that in spiritual journey, in all the path, concentration is something which is essential. We have to focus. And now, generally we think that concentration is a matter of will. That with my willpower, I try to stop the distractions of the mind and keep the mind focused in the object of my concentration. So that's what we have the idea. But know it for certain, unless and until our will gets converted into devotion, the meditation can never be effective. That when with our willpower we go on meditating again and again, whether it is on an idea of a divine where I am separate from the divinity, or it is the idea that I am the Atman, one with the Brahman, whatever it may be. But the constant contemplation on that idea, at the beginning, of course, the willpower do play a major role. With my will, I am trying to stop the distractions and trying to keep my mind focused on the object of concentration. A time should come where the will has to be replaced by devotion. And that is bhakti. Why it has to be replaced by devotion? Only when you have developed that emotional faculty for the object of your contemplation, then only the meditation becomes spontaneous. As we have told again and again, that in our mind, whatever we do again and again, that repetition, that as if creates a path in the mind. What you do again and again, the constant endeavor to keep your mind focused in your object of meditation, that repeated practice as if creates a path in your mind, a groove in your mind. And once the groove is created, the nature of the mind is such that whatever we do again and again, it creates a path in the mind. And once the path is created, we start loving. Then emotion develops. Loving in doing it. We start loving to do it. And that's the thing which we find has been spoken of as bhakti. That with your will, when you do it again and again, then the love develops. And then there is no need for the will. You spontaneously will like to do it. What you like, there is no one needed to again and again remind you that you are supposed to meditate or give you some instructions. There is no need. Your love for the thing will make you do it by itself. It becomes spontaneous. And that's why in the Bhakti Shastras it has been mentioned, Bhaktya Sanjayate Bhakti. That it is the devotional practice that emanates, that evolves as devotion. Bhaktya. These practices of devotion, Sanjayate, it helps to manifest. Sanjayate means to manifest Bhakti, the devotion. So first it is through the will you are doing, and that has to get converted into bhakti, and then only your meditation can become something spontaneous. And once it has become spontaneous, then only the meditation can be effective. It can take you to a state of flow where all other distractions falls off. The mind is so focused that even the ego, our ego needs a part of our mind. A small part of our mind is always attached to our ego, is associated to our ego. Even in deep sleep, that is there. That's why when we wake up, we say it is I who was sleeping. We may think that in deep sleep we have no awareness, but awareness is there. That's why when we wake up, we know it is I who was sleeping. So that ego is something which is always with us, but only in deep meditation, in deep concentration, when everything else has fallen off. The last thing to fall off is the ego. And the ego falls off. And then what happens? The mind merges with the object of your concentration. It becomes one with the object of concentration. And that has been termed as samadhi. Samadhi is triputi bheda. Dhyana, dhyata, dheya. This triad falls off, collapses. There is no more distinction between the meditator and the object of meditation, as well as the process of meditation. Everything gets merged. You become one with the object of meditation, and that's when the scriptures say that it takes you to that realization. Religion no more remains a concept, no more remains a belief in certain doctrines or dogma. It takes you to a state of realization. And where a jnani, he sees everything as Brahman, where the ego has fallen off, everything is that essential, that consciousness. A bhakta, he sees everything as his ishta. You will find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's famous, his quotation, what's that? The famous thing he's saying again and again. Jatra jatra netra pade, tatra tatra Krishna sphure. That wherever my eye falls, wherever I see Krishna and Krishna alone. Whatever I see, Krishna as he pops up through the entire creation. So that's the idea, that's oneness. When the ego falls off, you become one with the object of meditation, and you see your object of meditation as permeating the entire existence. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that's why he's indicating that bhakti is the only essential thing. Whatever path we may be following, that focus is needed, concentration is needed, and that concentration comes only through bhakti. It's not through will. That bhakti alone can bring that spontaneous concentration. That's why he's saying bhakti is the only essential thing. And one obtains love of God. How? That's what we were discussing. By constantly chanting his name and singing his glories. By that repeated practice, you create the path in your mind, a groove in your mind. Once it is created, you develop inordinate love for it. No one can stop you doing that. It becomes a spontaneous practice, as has been indicated in the Bhakti Shastras. Ei Harinam nite nite bhakti mukul futbe chite. You go on taking the name of Hari, the name of the Lord, the bud of devotion, which at present is just a bud in your heart. It is yet to bloom. You say, go on taking the name, it will bloom. The bloom of devotion, bhakti mukul, futbe chite. In your mind, the bud of devotion will bloom. Just go on taking the name. That's the only way. So most of us complain that you say have love towards God. I don't feel love. How can I love God? So the answer is here. Go on taking the name. Let at the beginning it be a matter of practice. Whether I like it or not, I make it my practice, my essential practice, everyday practice, to repeat the name of Lord as and when possible. And know it for certain, this practice is going to get transformed, is going to get seasoned, is going to get evolved into bhakti. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that bhakti is the only essential thing. One obtains love of God by constantly chanting his name and singing his glories. What a devotee Shivnath is. He is soaked in the love of God like a cheesecake in syrup. One should not think my religion alone is right path and other religions are false. God can be realized by means of all paths. It is enough to have sincere yearning for God. So what path you are following, that's secondary. The primary thing is the yearning. If you have intense yearning, that vyakulata, mumukshutvam, the yearning to realize God, know it for certain, whatever path you may be following, it will take you to that realization. Because the same thing as we are indicating, it is a yearning. It is your intense yearning that is going to help in developing that intense focus. That how intense focus is created, it creates, when intense focus creates a deep impression in mind. Once through the yearning you create an intense focus, it helps to create a very deep impression in the mind. And once the deep impression is created in the mind, then the repetition is not that important, is not required. We feel that just now we were saying it is the repetition with which we create a groove in the mind. But repetition alone is not the only factor. That with how much intensity I am thinking a thought, that also is a very important factor in creating a groove in the mind. It creates an impression in the mind. So that's why yearning is a very important factor. That the example which we give, that how a deep impression is created in the mind by intense focus. That example which we have given so many times, that suppose you are in a car, you're traveling, and suddenly you see that some vehicle is about to, because it's on the wrong lane, so the vehicle on a wrong lane is about to come and strike you, just on the head-on collision, to have a head-on collision. And you're extremely scared. You apply the brake, but still you are sure that if the other car doesn't stop in time, there's going to be a very severe head-on collision. And by God's grace, it so happens just you avert that accident. Both the car stops just before having the collision. And this is the scenario you will find you can never forget throughout your life. When anyone asks, you will find, yes, all that memory is so vivid. What happened in those few seconds, you can never forget. Why? Because of the fear of death, your mind was automatically focused. And as it was extremely focused, all the things which were happening created a deep impression in your mind. There was no need for repetition. As the things were very deeply impressed in my mind, just in one go, it has created a deep groove in my mind, and I never forget. So, to create the groove in the mind, that the repetition is an important factor. With that yearning creates that intense groove. How? Yearning speaks of necessity. Why should I yearn for something? If I have a sense of necessity, then only I will yearn. And that when you have a sense of necessity, the focus comes automatically. That example again, which we give again and again. Suppose a surgeon is operating on the patient. He forgets for hours. Hunger, thirst, everything he forgets. His need to take rest. Why? His entire mind is focused on the edge of his scalpel, which is using for the procedure, which is using for the operation. As his mind is so focused on the procedure which is following, all other distractions in the form of hunger, thirst, they are all biological alarm. But the mind is so focused, they cannot take care of all those biological alarm system. They fall off. And the patient, we find that he doesn't, maybe for hours together, he is operating on the patient, but he doesn't feel any tiredness or the need for hunger or thirst. Nothing is there. Because his mind is extremely focused. Why is it focused? Because of the necessity. He knows very well a little mistake will be at the cost of the life of the patient. So that necessity gave him the focus. So here also that necessity. In the religious life, if we really feel that this phenomenal existence, this repeated birth and death, is in no way going to give us that ultimate fulfillment, ultimate joy, ultimate happiness. It will go on birth after birth. We will go on through the same process, frustrated at the end of life. Why frustrated? Because as Swamiji said, that every life, this is the experience, that the nature gives us in bounty so many things at certain point of time, and again takes away everything at certain point of time. And nothing remains with us. The entire nature is a flow. We are trying to cling to it. We can never cling to something which is flowing. We can never grasp something which is flowing. And as we want to grasp it, but we cannot, that entails in suffering. There is no happiness in this samsara. The word samsara itself indicates that. Samsarate iti samsara, that which is flowing. So one who has understood that and have realized that God alone is the one who is eternal. God alone is the one with whom I am eternally associated. The one with whom there is no polarities in the form of the joys and sufferings. It is always in the state of perpetual bliss. One who have realized that. It's a sense of necessity that will make him to feel the yearning for God. And from that necessity will come that tremendous focus. And that focus will lead in the tremendous impression in the mind where you did not have to repeat again and again. That's why in the Yoga Sutra, there is a special sutra. What is that? That when the spiritual aspirant asks that what's the time? What's the time span for my spiritual evolution? The answer is Tivra Sangveganam Asanna. The one who has a tremendous yearning, Sangvega. For him it is asana, it is just waiting. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that yearning is just like the red hue of the dawn. In the dawn, when the sun is yet to be visible, the sun is not visible, is yet to be visible. But I see the red hue in the entire sky. I know, just it's a matter of few minutes, the sun will be visible. So yearning alone speaks of the acceleration in the process of your spiritual evolution. So your spiritual journey can be accelerated if you have that tremendous yearning, whatever path you may follow. Because the path is, after all, that yearning will create that focus will result in the flow, that will at last result in the falling of ego, and there will be the Triputi Bheda leading into Samadhi. That's the procedure through all the paths. If you just study the life of the mystics of any religion, those who went to that unitary experience, unitive experience, you will find they have all followed that same path. They were not satisfied but just in believing in certain doctrines and dogmas. If God is, I have to realize Him in this life. With that yearning, they started their journey leading them to that realization. And that alone, when Ramakrishna is saying infinite are the paths and infinite the opinions, what he's actually indicating, that as paths there are infinite. But if you have that yearning through all the paths, you can go to that realization. As per the paths are concerned, they are diverse. As per the doctrines and dogmas are concerned, they are diverse. But as per the realization, if anyone had some mystic realization, they all will speak in the same language. All the fight is among the people who believe in certain doctrine, who believe in certain way of spiritual, doctrines and dogmas. This is just those who believe, for them all the fight. Those who have went to that realization, they are not satisfied just with the belief. They all go to that unitive experience. And that's the thing which has been indicated by Ramakrishna. So God can be realized by means of all paths. It is enough to have sincere yearning for God. Infinite are the paths and infinite the opinions. Let me tell you one thing. God can be seen. Here, Sri Ramakrishna is asserting again that religion is not a matter of belief. God can be seen. The Vedas say that God is beyond mind and speech. The meaning of this is that God is unknown to the mind, attached to worldly objects. Now, why Sri Ramakrishna is going to stress that God is, though this Vedas say that God is avang manasa gocharam, is beyond mind, beyond speech. Avak, manas agocharam. Is avak, is beyond speech, and manasa agocharam, is beyond even the mind. If that be so, if God is beyond mind and speech, then what is the need for our spiritual practices? So that's why that we may feel that Vedas says God is beyond the mind and speech, so all the spiritual practices are futile. So that's to help us get rid of this wrong notion. Sri Ramakrishna is asserting that God can be seen. And then he's saying that, then he's indicating that the Vedas says that God is beyond mind and speech. And then he's saying the meaning of this is that God is unknown to the mind, attached to worldly objects. We will come to the discussion. It is a very, this you have to understand that Sri Ramakrishna is not contradicting the Vedas. What he is saying is something which is highly significant. Let us go through his words and then we will try to discuss on it. Vaishnavacharan, a noted devotee of the Vaishnava sect and an admirer of Sri Ramakrishna, used to say, God is known by the mind and intellect that are pure. Therefore, it is necessary to seek the company of holy men, practice prayer, and listen to the instruction of the Guru. This purifies the mind. Then one sees God. Dirt can be removed from water by purifying agent. Then one sees one's reflection in it. One cannot see one's face in a mirror if the mirror is covered with dirt. So from these words, what we can understand, that though apparently it may appear that the words of the Vedas and that of Sri Ramakrishna are contradictory, but actually it is not contradictory. What it is saying, that one may think that one's effort is of no avail in trying to realize spiritual truth, as the ultimate truth is beyond mind and senses. That's what we may think. But so to stress the need for spiritual practices, Sri Ramakrishna is speaking thus. So what he is saying, when one purifies the mind, you will find that the last words are very important. Then one sees God, one's reflection in it, when the dirt has been removed from the water. So purifying the mind. When you purify the mind, this is what happens. When one purifies the mind, then one with the help of the mind goes beyond the mind. That's the idea. To experience something which is ineffable and noetic. So, it is not that with this mind you will be seeing God. We cannot do that. Because the subject can never be known the way I know an object. If you know the subject as such and such, then the subject becomes object. So when the Veda says that God is beyond mind and senses, it is correct. But when Sri Ramakrishna says God is known with the pure mind, he is also correct. That we have to reach that state where God is ineffable. You cannot describe him, but you experience. You become one with the thing which you are. With the help of what happens when through your spiritual practice, that you go to a state where the mind itself falls off. Shankaracharya gives a very nice example that how to purify the water. We use camphor to purify the water. Now the camphor purifies the water, and after purifying you will find the camphor itself has dissolved. It is no more there. So that's what Shankaracharya is saying. So here also the idea is that the mind, when it gets purified, completely purified, it itself falls off. That idea we will find that how long the mind is mind, as long there are thoughts. As the Yoga Sutra starts with that idea. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The thought waves in your mind. That yoga is to stop them, to totally annihilate them. These vrittis are, as long as the vrittis are there, the mind is there. You will, if you remember, if you recollect, the word vritti doesn't mean waves. It actually means profession. That's why Yoga Sutra has selected these words very, very intelligently. Why he has used the word vritti for the waves? Because as long as the thought waves are there, the mind is. If the thought waves are no more there, the mind is not. So what the thought wave speaks of? It speaks of various thoughts. That in our mind, if we just look in our mind, we'll find constantly the mind is jumping from thought to thought. If somehow all the spiritual practice speaks of focus, and it from Bahu Vritti to go to a state of Eka Vritti, that there are thousands of thoughts, you are trying to streamline the mind to one thought. Then what happens if you can really have one thought in the mind won't be there anymore. Whatever it may be, whatever you may be thinking, if you can make it one thought, the mind won't be there. This is the thing which in a very simple way we can understand. This in this world, wherever we see a flow, know it for certain there is a polarity. Why water flows? Because there is a difference of level. It only flows from higher level to the lower level. If both the levels are same, the water flow will stop. Why electricity flows? Because there is a difference in potential. If both the ends have same potential, there is no current. In the magnetism also, if both the polarities are of same strength, same pole, this both are north pole of same strength, the magnetism is nullified. So whenever we find there is a polarity, there only there is a flow. Mind also is a part of the samsara, and you will find it is constantly flowing. Even if you will, it is so difficult to stop the mind. That's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita have described the mind like a wind. Just the way it is almost impossible to hold the wind. It is always flowing. The mind is like that. It is always flowing. So what's the way to stop that mind? Bring it to one thought. As when the two levels are same, there is no flow of water. As when both ends have same potential, there is no electricity. Similarly, if there is no difference in thoughts, the mind cannot jump from one thought to another thought. Because of your intense concentration, the mind is in one thought. In this ekavritti, then the mind stops flowing. And when the mind stops flowing, what happens? The mind is like a prism which is breaking the consciousness, which is like white light, into the spectrum, which is like this world of name and form. The moment the mind ceases, the entire spectrum merges with the white light. The spectrum is no more visible. The world of name and form becomes one with that white light. So this is the thing. So how it happens? It's not merely a matter of belief. We have to go to that state through our practice, where when the mind gets purified, it goes to the state of no mind, and when that you become one with that eternal subject, which is again avang manasa gocharam. You cannot in any way describe it, but you can become one with it. It is ineffable, but it is noetic. You have a tremendous conviction when you come back from that state that you have realized something which no one can take away from you. As it is not a matter of mere belief, you have realized the one who has seen the ocean, no one can make him disbelieve the existence of ocean. You have seen it. Till you haven't seen it, you may, someone else may, with the help of a lot of reasoning, can make you doubt the existence of ocean. But once you have seen, there's no question of doubting the existence. So realization alone is knowledge. So once that pure mind, that one thought, all the distractions has fallen off, has enabled you to get rid of the mind, even for a fraction of a moment. And then what happens? The spectrum in the form of this world of name and form merges with that absolute. You go to that realization. And then when you come back, you're a total changed person. Why? That even if that what brings back the mind again, it's not easy to get rid of the mind in one go. What brings back this one thought, which actually is now is fully concentrated in your subconscious mind. Having that thought alone in that mind has taken you to the state of no thought. But from that again, this thought alone can bring it back. It takes a repeated practice. In the Yoga Sutra they say that the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is Savija. Again, through repeated practice, it can become Nirvija. This thought alone can again bring back your mind. But once you go to that state of that even if it is a savija, what has happened? You have become totally transformed person. How? That once you know that everything is just a mere projection, is just a spectrum, the reality is a white lie, then the entire existence becomes like a mirage. As Swami Vivekananda said, that I was traveling through the desert, I was thirsty, I was in search of water, I saw a huge reservoir, I was approaching towards it, and it vanished suddenly. And then I realized, till now it was my knowledge. I read in the textbook about mirage. Today I realized what it is. And the next day when I was traveling, again I saw the mirage, because I'm in my mind. I see it. But today there's a big difference. That so-called huge reservoir has lost the capacity to drag me towards it, because I know it's a mere projection. So that's the state of Jivan Mukta. Though you are in the body-mind, till your prarabdha exhausts all the residual karma, you are in your body-mind, but you are in no way attached, lured to this panorama. It falls off for you once for all. So now we will understand that when Vedanta says that the ultimate reality is avang manasa gocharam, it is beyond our mind and speech, and Ramakrishna is saying that it can be attained, that you can see God through your pure mind and pure intellect. They are not contradicting. It is taking you to a state which is beyond mind, but you have to go with the help of the mind. Sri Ramakrishna used to speak of 3 dacoits, an allegory of 3 dacoits. That the 3 dacoits one day got hold of a passerby. They used to stay there. This passerby was passing through a forest, and these 3 dacoits got hold of him. And they looted him, snatched away whatever he had. And after that, one of them told, now what's the use of keeping this person alive? Let us kill him. The second one told, why to kill him? Let us just tie him around a tree and let us live. Why just simply to kill him? And the 3 thought most probably that is better. So they tied him nicely with the stump of a tree, and the 3 left. After some time, the 3rd dacoit returned. He was a bit compassionate. He told, oh, you must that we have tied you, it must be hurting you. Let me open you, untie you. The 3rd one untied him, and then he told that if I just leave you here, you will never find out the way. You will get lost. Come, let me show you the way to your village. So he guides him through the jungle and takes him to a point from where the village is visible. So this 3rd dacoit shows, see, that the village you see. So now you can proceed to your village. Now this man, he felt that a sense of gratitude. He told, you have helped me out from this danger. Why not you accompany me and stay overnight with me as my guest? And this dacoit told, no, that's not possible. From here you have to go alone. If I accompany you, the police are waiting. I will be caught. I will be arrested. And then he returns back. So after saying this story, Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the dacoit who said kill him, he's tamas. He's the tamasikata. That you will find in our life, lethargy, laziness, all those things is the cause of our destruction. You can in no way integrate your life unless you are having that endeavor. And this, the one who told tie him, is the rajas. In our life, with all our ambitions, we get bound in this world as if tied in this cycle of birth and death. So that is the rajas. And the 3rd dacoit who untied him and took him to the verge of the forest from where the village was visible, he is the sattva. So he is leading him, but he also cannot accompany him. So the pure mind will lead you to that absolute, but it has to fall off before that. It cannot accompany you. The mind cannot accompany you to the absolute. So the 3rd, this is also the story of Ramakrishna. From there you will find that the synthesis of these two ideas, that Vedanta is saying God is beyond mind and speech, and Sri Ramakrishna is saying God can be known through the mind and intellect that are pure. So the mind, the pure mind, takes you to the state of no mind, and from that no mind only you become one with that absolute reality which we all are. Tattvamasi, you are that. So that's the wonderful idea. So now again let us just read these words of Ramakrishna, and we will find that sometimes these words are so simple that we miss the actual significance of it. That let me tell you one thing, God can be seen. The Vedas say that God is beyond mind and speech. The meaning of this is that God is unknown to the mind, attached to the worldly objects. Vaishnavacharya, a noted devotee of the Vaishnava sect and an admirer of Sri Ramakrishna, used to say, God is known by the mind and the intellect that are pure. So his known means realized. Known means not like knowing an object. Means known means to have the knowledge of it. So when you become one with it, that actually speaks of that knowledge. So it can be known. God is known by the mind and intellect that are pure. Therefore it is necessary to seek the company of the holy men, practice prayer, and listen to the instruction of the Guru. These purify the mind. Then one sees God. And then that example is again very important. Dirt can be removed from water by a purifying agent. Then one sees one's reflection in it. One cannot see one's face in a mirror if the mirror is covered with dirt. So this is the idea which we find Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that to assert the need for the spiritual practice, that by saying that God being beyond mind and speech, why to practice the spiritual discipline, which is futile. We cannot know anything because we cannot know God. So to emphasize the need for the spiritual practice, Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that God can be realized, He can be seen, and the process is through the purification of the mind. Otherwise, it can lead to all sorts of false doctrines. You will find in the Gospel, in some other place, that one Vedantin, a spiritual aspirant who professed himself to be a Vedantin, he was found to have to be involved in some illicit relation. He got engaged in some illicit relations. And when people asked him that you are after all a holy man, you are profess that you are the Brahman, everything is false, means you're supposed to lead a very pure religious life. How come that you are involved in such illicit relations? And the man replied that if the world is false, are my relations real? That also is false. So just see that Vedanta, any religious doctrines, religious ideas, we can interpret in a total different way if we have not internalized the religion. When Sri Ramakrishna heard these words, he told, I spit on such Vedanta. So now you will understand that why, that the context of Sri Ramakrishna's word, to stress the need to purify our mind, to go to that realization, he is speaking these words. Without that, our intellect is like a double-edged sword, our intellect. With our intellect, we can prove anything, we can disapprove anything. You will find it happens in the court, that the lawyer, if he has that tremendous power, his intelligence and the power to deliver his arguments in a very in a justified manner, you will find it that sometimes when you thought that such a case will be lost, and he wins, he comes out of it. It's all the play of your intellect. With the intellect, it's like a double-edged sword. You can prove, you can disapprove. Shankaracharya in his commentary has mentioned, after refuting all other the doctrines and dogmas, at last how humbly he is saying that I have established Vedanta by refuting all the other religious the doctrines. But then he is saying, with full humility, he is saying There may be someone more intelligent than me to refute my ideas. Not today, but tomorrow. They may refute. But what they cannot refute? My realization. So, my realization cannot be refuted. What I have realized, no one can take it away from me. That is my conviction. So, realization alone is religion. If the Ramakrishna tradition speaks of any uniqueness, today you will find even in the present age, we are fighting in the name of religion. There, silently, if Ramakrishna movement is keeping some mark, is this: the stress, the need for realization, not in belief in some doctrine and dogma and shouting at the top of your voice that my way of my religion is correct, yours is wrong. Forget about all those things. Dive deep, whatever you believe. It is not just to prove that your religion is superior to others. Religion is not for that. It is meant for practice and going to that realization. And when you go there, that is something which is noetic and ineffable. You cannot speak of it. Because you are one, when you are one with the absolute reality, it cannot be spoken. But you have realized it. So that is noetic. It is not something anymore, it is not something which is an imagination. It's no more a belief. Noetic means you know it. That's what William James, who studied all the religions and wrote a book on this comparative study of the religions. That's what he came to that conclusion, that those who practice the religion, at last they go to a state of realization. And that, what is the nature of that realization? He is giving these two terms. It is something which is ineffable. No one can describe them that explicitly that this is such. They can give some echo of it. They may try to, just as Swami Vivekananda used to say, that what's the absolute reality is like when you try to speak of it. It is just like the words of a small child who has just picked up a few words, few vocabularies. He has some experience. Most probably he has enjoyed or relished a particular dish, and you ask him how it is, and you will find his face is full of expression, or her face is full of expression. But what he's speaking is just a mere babble of words. He cannot express because he or she is yet to develop this vocabulary. So he's trying to express something he has experienced, but he cannot express. So all the mystics go to that state where they have experienced time. It is noetic, but is ineffable. They cannot. They're like a small child, they babble. But from their body language you can find that they're very much convinced about what they have realized. It's noetic. So that's the thing which is being indicated here. So when after the purification of the heart one obtains divine love, then one sees God through His grace. One can teach others if one receives that command from God after seeing Him. Before that, one should not lecture. There is a song that says, "You have set up no image here. Within the shrine of fool, blowing the conch, you simply make confusion worse confounded." What's that? That before realization, when we try to speak of that absolute reality, that lecturing means when we are trying to speak of, what is the lecturing? When say, oh, such and such form of divinity is the only form of divinity. Others are mere demigods or something like that, you say. That is lecturing. Have you realized? That's what thing. Padmacharan went in a court when he found there's a dispute whether Shiva is great or Vishnu is great. When he was asked to give his opinion, his only question, he asked both the sides who were arguing, have you seen Vishnu or have you seen Shiva? When he got the answer in negative, he asked, have your fathers sinned? Have your forefathers sinned? None. And you are arguing about something about which you have no realization. So, when we are speaking of the path, that's why Buddha used to say that I never speak of the principle. I just speak of a way following which you can go to that realization. That what is lecturing? Lecturing is when the prophet is pointing to the moon with his index finger, we take his index finger to be the moon and seeing that index finger, we get attached to that personality and thinking that index finger itself to be the moon, we start asserting that yes, this alone, that is just the way. It is not the truth, ultimate truth which has been spoken of. So, when without realization we speak, that is bound to create confusion. That's been indicated in a song that you have set up no image here. Actually, this song has a story behind it. What's the story? That in a village there was a boy who was of no use, he was a bit idiotic. His name was Paddalochan. Paddalochan means his eyes, lotus-eyed. His name was Paddalochan. Everyone in short used to call him Podo. As his name was Paddalochan, you know that we always shorten the name, so everyone used to call him Podo. And he was a stupid, he was an idiotic fellow, and he was of no use, just spending his time roaming about, and was a lazy fellow. And one day in the village, they hear that there was a dilapidated temple. No worship was going on there for years together. It was dilapidated. It was full of cobwebs, and this lot of the shrubs have grown around it. There were a lot of vegetation around it. There was no way to go because no one was visiting that place. And suddenly the entire village could hear the blowing of the conch shell from there. So the villagers thought most probably someone have installed a deity there, cleaned up the entire place, and so that and there is some consecration ceremony going on there. Otherwise, why should someone blow the conch there? And they ran to that dilapidated temple to find that this boy, this Paddalochan, he for no reason just somehow managed to get a conch, was sitting there idly and was without any purpose blowing that conch. And then in reaction the villagers told these words. That's being indicated here. You have set up no image here. Within the shrine, O fool, blowing the conch, you simply make confusion, worse, confounded. What's the idea? It's the same thing. That we say that we give that example of a person who have tasted the mango and trying to explain a group of people who have never tasted the mango. He's trying to explain the taste of mango to them. So when he speaks about the taste of mango, he says it is very sweet, it has a nice flavor, and those who have not tasted, they try to relate his words with their available fund of experience. They have not tasted the mango. So someone starts saying that the mango is sweet like molasses, it has a fragrance like the tuberose. Someone says, no, it has a fragrance of jasmine, and it is as sweet as honey. And you will find there are thousands of opinions. All are trying to interpret it with their available fund of knowledge without trying to realize it, creating what? This confusion. Nothing else, confusion. So, this is the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that what is the idea of setting up of the image is that through your spiritual practice, purify your heart. And then only that realization becomes something internalized. That is the setting up of the image. You become what yesterday's imagination becomes today's realization. You have installed the image in your heart. You have purified your mind. So here that shrine was dilapidated, it was not cleaned, no image was installed, he was simply blowing the conch and creating confusion. So that's why the villagers are saying that you haven't set any image here within the shrine of fool. And you are blowing the conch and you are creating simply confusion, words confounded. So that's the idea. That's why in one of the Upanishads, in the Mundaka Upanishad, when they speak of the characteristic of a realized soul, they say that he is na ativadi, na ativadi. Ativada. That when we are speaking about religion, constantly what we are doing, we are just resorting to Ativada. Ativada, very significant word. Vada means speech. Ati means beyond speech. We are resorting to something which is beyond our speech. The idea of God is beyond our speech because we haven't realized it. That's why it is Ativada. Only a man of realization, the one who tasted the mango and was speaking about the taste of mango, he is Nativadi. What he's speaking beyond his is substantiated by his realization. For all others, why the confusion has been created? Because what they are speaking is not substantiated by the realization. So that's why just see that how nice this word is, how significant this word, that you have set up no image here within the shrine of full blowing the conch. You simply make confusion worse confounded. You should first cleanse the shrine of your heart. Now Ramakrishna is again speaking after quoting those few lines. Now he is now reflecting on it. You should first cleanse the shrine of your heart, then you should install the deity and arrange worship. As yet nothing has been done. What can you achieve by blowing the conch shell? The conch shell is blown during the temple service. So what is the thing you are going to just achieve by blowing the conch shell and simply making a loud noise? So what's the idea? First cleanse the shrine of your heart, purify your mind, and then through the meditation, go to that realization. So that's why even in the Yoga Sutra, in the Yoga Shastra, we find there are 8 steps. The first steps are the yama and the niyama. Yama speaks of restriction, niyama speaks of observations. That ahimsa, asteya, satya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. All those practices has to be internalized. That speaks of the cleansing of the heart. And then install the deity. Then after this year practicing yama and niyama, then resort to the dhyana, dharana, samadhi. And then alone, after purifying the mind, it will take you to that ultimate realization. Then only the deity has been installed. Now you can blow your conch. It has a meaning, because what you will be speaking will be authenticated by your realization, not before that. So that's the idea which has been spoken of by Sri Ramakrishna in these lines. So this is the idea which we find in all the religion, even in Bible, the Christian, Jesus is saying, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Swami Vivekananda, while delivering lecture in the West, as he was lecturing to the Christian audience, it was all Christian. So he quoted this line and he told something very interesting. He told, if all the religions of the world gets destroyed, and if just only this one line of Jesus somehow is preserved, is preserved, all religions will again come out from this one sentence. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. That's the only criteria for our spiritual evolution. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that don't resort to mere discussion on the philosophies. Just adopt a spiritual practice, purify your mind, purify your heart, and go to that realization. That alone is the thing which is needed for the entire humankind. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Vijay sat on a raised stool and conducted the worship according to the rules of the Brahma Samaj. Afterwards, he sat by the master. So, master to Vijay, will you tell me one thing? Why did you harp so much on sin? By repeating 100 times, I am a sinner, one verily becomes a sinner. One should have such faith as to be able to say, what? I have taken the name of God. How can I be a sinner? God is our father and mother. Tell him, O Lord, I have committed sins, but I won't repeat them. Chant his name and purify your body and mind. Purify your tongue by singing God's holy name. So this idea that what you think that you become. If you constantly harp on your sin, you remain a sinner. If you constantly think of God, your mind gets purified. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the more you go towards East, the West naturally falls behind. You cannot push the West. So the only way we can purify our mind is to think of God, chant His holy name, not resort to that sinful activities again and again. That's why your Shraddha speaks of your purity. That's why even in Bhagavad Gita we will find there is a sloka in the 17th chapter. Shraddha mayo ayam purusha yo yat shraddhya sa eva sa. The man is made up of his faith. It is all our... We will find that the fight in the entire world is not between right and wrong. It is with the perspective. And perspective speaks of the faith. So we are all constituted, what we are made up of? Our faith. We cannot somehow jump out of our faith. In some form, even an atheist has a faith. A faith that there is no God, that also is a faith. So everything, so man is made up of faith, and he is verily what is faith is, what his faith is. So, if the faith is the thing which constitutes us, why all the time delve on sin? That's just saying I'm a sinner. Then you become a sinner. If you go on saying you're a sinner, you become a sinner. Think of God, and that purifies you. So that's the thing that Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That don't delve on sin. Don't constantly dwell on sin. Think of God. Tell Him, oh Lord, I have committed sins, but I won't repeat them. That resolution should be there. Chant His name. Purify your body and mind. So our mind at a time can never have more than one thought. If you're thinking something holy, all the unholy thoughts are bound to fall off. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if the sins are like the birds sitting in the tree of our body, the body is like the tree, this psychophysical existence is like the tree in which the birds, like the sins, are sitting there. You'll find if the birds are sitting on a tree, you go and clap your hands, they all fly off. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that taking the name of the Lord is just like clapping your hands. All the sins will fly off. So that's the thing he's indicating. That if it's the fact that your mind cannot have more than one thought at a time, then why not resort to the name of the Lord? The more you think of Him, the other unholy thoughts naturally falls off. So that he's speaking of. So we will continue with his discussion, with the discussion Sri Ramakrishna is having with the Brahmo devotees on some another day, again in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.